The following is a presentation of Sertoba Media and Comey Media Incorporated.
Welcome, one and all. It's that time again. We're back for Total Football Talk Extra. I am your host, Drew Willingham. And for our special guest host, we have to give a very special introduction. Please welcome back Mr. Ryan McCovey.
Let's go.
We are back for Extra, as we have extra football to talk about on this Friday Eve. Because as you know, with Total Football Talk, we can only cover up through the previous Sunday games. So this week, we're going to add the Monday Night Football game. We're going to also talk more CFL because we have the division finals to discuss from this past week. We also have the Grey Cup to preview for tomorrow. And even outside of football, we have Mike, Motherfather, and Tyson coming back tonight. Mr. Mike Tyson coming back. Knock out Jake, Motherfather, and Paul. And hopefully, I'm going to make a few Motherfather and dollars on it. What about you there, Mr. McCoffey?
Yeah, the state of New York has unfortunately not allowed that fight to be bet on. Not that I do a lot of betting anyway. Maybe a couple tacos or a Twinkie here and there, but nothing too extravagant or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, I don't have Netflix, but I know the fight's happening tonight, and I'm looking forward to Mike Tyson at 58 years old knocking out this jabroni.
Yes, beat the prime out of him, and not his actual prime. I mean, the liquid drink out of him. Okay, and this show is sponsored by Celsius. They might be having a couple Celsius. Beat the Celsius out of him too. But anyway, back to football.
I got a C4.
Get hype if you are watching this fight on Netflix tonight. That is where it will be. And our man Sick Diggy is in the house saying, "What's good, everybody?"
What's happening, Sick Diggy? Thanks for joining us, bud.
We're glad that you are here and that you are not taking don't want to see anybody take the L except for the Dallas Cowboys. We'll talk more about that later on in this show, because if you don't love them, you absolutely hate them. And both of us here are on the other side. We do not like them. As you see, the hoodie I'm wearing has the logo of the team that is a rival with them. But today we have many things to discuss, and we'll go ahead and start this off with a little bit of CFL action. Take this into the opening drive.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989. On two. Ready? Hey!
And you know, for this one, we're going to flip our background for a second. We're going to flip to the Total Football Talk background, and we're going to take this into the Sunday games. And now we'll flip it back to our background, and we'll talk Sunday games, because CFL was on Sunday this past week, and we had two games that we had to cover, from the 3 o'clock game to the 6 o'clock game, 6:30 game. And between these four teams that were left, you know, there were a couple surprises in there for some, but for like yourself, Mr. McCarthy, who had said early on in the season, especially with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and how they were starting, don't let this fool you. This team is still a playoff team, and I'll be honest, in that moment, I was not fully buying into that. I was doubting it, but at the same time, my knowledge of CFL has grown throughout this season. Okay, it is not where it was at that point. And when we talk about CFL, now with this being the West Division Finals, we'll look back at this past Sunday's game, and well, actually Saturday. My apologies, not Sunday, but it was the 6:00 game. Yeah, I was a little off for that. My apologies, but
It's okay.
Saturday, the 6:00 game is what we'll look at first, and the Saskatchewan Rough Riders. I got to get it out now. Got to let it loose because we're at the tail end of me saying that name. But this team traveled to Winnipeg to take on the Blue Bombers, and the Blue Bombers won this game 38-22. Zach Collaros, 311 passing yards with 4 passing touchdowns, 1 carry for 10 yards, along with Brady Oliveira's 20 carries for 119 rushing yards and a touchdown, 2 receptions for 22 receiving yards. Kenny Lawler's 4 receptions for 177 receiving yards and 3 receiving touchdowns, along with Nick Dembski's 8 receptions for 49 yards and a touchdown. The Blue Bombers defense, though, only had 2 sacks on the day. They were a little quiet in comparison to what they had been doing up until this playoff run. But Sergio Castillo also adds a little bit of help with 1 field goal out of 1 attempt, with that long being of 30 yards, and contributed 8 points with the extra points that he had on the day. For the Rough Riders, Trevor Harris, 283 passing yards and a passing touchdown, 1 carry for 15 yards he also adds on the day. A.J. Owlett only had 10 carries on the day for 51 yards and 1 rushing touchdown. They couldn't really get him going against that Blue Bombers defense. The 4 receptions for 17 yards also contributed, but wasn't quite enough to help them get past the 16-point deficit at the end. Keon Schaefer-Baker, 12 receptions for 162 receiving yards, and Samuel Emilus, 4 receptions for 58 receiving yards and a touchdown contributed, but again, not enough to make the comeback. I'd say probably one of the highlights of the day for this Rough Riders team was Brett Lowther's 3 field goals out of 3 attempts, contributing 10 points with a long of 44 yards, was the most action out of special teams. When you look at this game, Ryan, do you think that Rough Riders played like a bunch of dumpster Pelicans? Or was just this Blue Bombers offense just too hard for this defense of the Rough Riders to handle?
Yeah, it was. I think it was the latter rather than the former. I said in our preview of the 2-minute drill, I said this is going to be the Rough Riders are going to play 12 people on the field and about 35,000 people in the stands, because Princess Auto Stadium, aka the Toolbox, it gets loud. So they're always on the side of their Blue Bomber team, especially over the last 5 seasons. We've talked about domination of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers over the last 5 seasons for this team. They've won, this is now, 2019, 2021, 22, 23. Yeah, this is their 5th straight West Division title. They've earned every single one of them. And yeah, this was just a team that, they're getting older, but they still know how to win. It's a culture. It's a culture of winning. They've built a culture of winning between Mike O'Shea and his coaching to the executives at the front office who have built this team brick by brick. Guys leave, but guys come in and they contribute. Andrew Harris left the team after the 2022 season. Brady Oliveira comes in and he's having 2 very good seasons. So I think this is just the Blue Bombers know how to win. Let's put it that way. Saskatchewan, great season. Had a little bit of a lull in the mid-season, but got back on track in September, earned their way to this point. But this is a team that, if they stick together like this Winnipeg Blue Bombers team has, they could be special for years to come. But right now, it's just straight up domination by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And it showed in this game. And, talked about the defense. The 2 big things we always look at are turnovers and sacks. Whether turnovers, whether it be interceptions or fumble recoveries, and sacks. Sure, they had only 2 sacks on the day, but look what they did on the side of the ball on the second down. The second down, Saskatchewan was 7 for 22 on second down. They completed only 32% of their second down opportunities. That gets you off the field. It's going to make a big difference, and it certainly did in this game. Winnipeg's defense came to play, even with all the injuries and departures. They still came to play, and they did a lot to help their team in this game. And the offense is just still as dominant as ever. Or the offense is also just as dominant as ever. Bray Oliveira, 119 yards and a touchdown. Kenny Lawler had only 4 receptions, but 3 of those were touchdowns. He's Zach Lawrence's go-to guy for basically the entire season. And Nick Dempsey always contributing with the game. So with his game, so yeah, Winnipeg did the things that they were supposed to do. That's what veteran teams do. That's what dynasty teams do. They find ways to win. Everybody contributes in a way, whether it be on offense, defense, special teams. Everybody contributes. And they did what Saskatchewan couldn't do. Saskatchewan couldn't get off. They were getting up. Their offense was getting off the field, kicking field goals instead of converting touchdowns. Winnipeg had 5 touchdowns and a field goal. That wins you games. Field goals do not. So, give credit where credit's due to Saskatchewan Roughriders, but Winnipeg is just rolling. They're rolling. There's going to be a day where they won't roll as much anymore. It won't roll as much, and you'll start to see the decline. But for now, this is Winnipeg's division. Has been for the last now 5 seasons, going to 5 consecutive Grey Cups. And if they win on Sunday, this could be a dynasty making moment for them. And they showed it in this game that they could possibly do it.
So I'm just gonna miss saying the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I mean, I've been having fun with that all season long. The one thing too is I don't know if Winnipeg Blue Bombers just fits well enough. I mean, it kind of did a little bit off the tongue, but it's just not like the Roughriders. I don't know. I'm about to work on it this week as we get close to Grey Cup coverage. You know, is that game's just tomorrow. I mean, we are just one day.
No, Sunday.
Away.
It's on Sunday night.
Sunday. That's right. They did move it back a day. It's 6:00. That's right. So, and I do have a graphic for that here shortly. But for this game right here, you know, credit, like Ryan said, for the Roughriders to get this far because it was looking a little bleak. I mean, for the Blue Bombers themselves, I mean, I know my wording on the Blue Bombers is a little crooked to the right, but hey, give me. It's been a rough week. All right. Hey, but look at this. The Roughriders, again, like I was saying, they kind of almost didn't make it. They were kind of like the BC Lions towards the end. They're barely scraping by just to make their mark into the playoffs. The fact that they had an actual home playoff game, I think, is what helped them even get to this point because, you know, home field advantage is huge. It really is. The crowd, you know, the atmosphere, your routine going into the game, all that makes a big impact. And people who don't play the game don't really understand it. It really does. You know, it definitely, you know, comfort is everything when it comes to doing things, especially in sport and repetition and, you know, keeping things together. So that's how I feel that the Saskatchewan Roughriders only made it here. Had BC Lions potentially got that home playoff game, I mean, I know they had the miscues, the quarterback position, but we could have potentially seen the Lions and the Blue Bombers, but I don't think we would have had as close of a contest. I think the Blue Bombers would have absolutely wiped the floor with the Lions. For myself, as, you know, a first-year fan of the Roughriders, first-year true fan of CFL action, getting to understand the game, because I know the game of football, American football, but to do, you know, football coverage with you on Total Football Talk, and now with X talking about the CFL, you know, I've grown my fanhood over this season just from that. And the Roughriders definitely will be a team to watch moving forward, I believe. I think they can build on this. They're a very young team overall. That they are not like, you know, they don't have the questions at the quarterback position like they do over there in British Columbia. So I think that they're going to be okay in Saskatchewan for a while. And just when you're going against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who, like you said, have been at the top of this West Division for several years now, They're kind of like, would you say they're kind of like the Chiefs of the CFL?
Yeah, they are. I mean, it's a 9-team league, so compared to 32 teams in the NFL, yeah, this would be comparable to the Chiefs. It's a fair comparison.
The Chiefs is the Chiefs, and the Blue Bombers is the Chiefs. So there it is. But yes, I mean, as far as dominance goes and finding ways to win games, because I've seen some similarities between the two franchises throughout this CFL season in comparison to the NFL and the Chiefs. And we got our guy Dante who's in the house saying, "What's up, guys? What's up, Dante? Glad to have you here on this Friday. Congrats for your victory last night against my commies." I was at work watching said game, and I was very mad when they went forward on fourth down. Okay, we're going to break that down more on Monday morning. I will be doing an episode of Commander's Gridiron Report tonight after this show, but it will only be reviewing the Sunday game that we had with the Steelers. I'm playing a little bit of catch up. So I was trying to do that show earlier in the week and then do the Eagles coverage tonight, but I got to work within my own means, and I'm sorry. I'm only doing one show tonight after this because I'm watching the Mike Tyson fight. All right. Going to my boy's house, watch the game. Anyway, right here and now. As long as nothing drastically happens, but we'll get back to that later. What's up, guys? From Dante, he says, along with Sick Diggy in the house. But right here with the Blue Bombers, do you see anything that could potentially hold them back from winning in this upcoming game? I know we got to do a preview of that, but without really going too much into a preview, did you see anything in this division finals game, Ryan, that would ultimately hold them back from potentially achieving their goal of winning another Grey Cup?
I don't think so. I don't think so. But we had this game 2 years ago in what was it, in Regina? I think it was. Hang on. 2022 Grey Cup. Where was the 2022 Grey Cup? Yeah, that was in Regina. Okay, I was wrong. I was right. we saw that at that time it was a more shocking result because Toronto was kind of a surprise team to win the East that year. We kind of knew and last year they won the East running away, but then they had to get punched in the face in the East final. This time I think we know what to expect, especially now with Chad Kelly being out because his ankle decided to give out on him on Saturday afternoon. That's going to make a big difference because they're going to have to rely on the running game a lot more. And we saw what happened in this game with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers defense. They only allowed A.J. Ouellette 51 yards on the ground. And that's a good, I mean, both these teams, Winnipeg and Saskatchewan, probably would have given Toronto fits because these were the top two teams in rush defense this year. They don't give a lot of yards up on the ground. But it's one game. Anything goes. We've seen shocking results in big games before. 22 was not an exception. So, I mean, but looking back at these highlights and just seeing how good Winnipeg was offensively, very efficient, defensively getting off the field, 7 of 20, allowing only 7 of 22 second down conversions. Yeah, we could see this type of result on Sunday if things go right for Winnipeg.
I think that it's going to be interesting to watch. It's going to be a good game. We'll definitely get more into that as time goes on throughout the show. But I was just wondering, I was like, did you see anything from your point of view that could potentially hold them back in this next game? And definitely well answer without giving too much away for the next one. But with all that being said, even though I completely butchered it with this, let's go ahead and go back to the Saturday game. That's on me, but right here and now, let's see. Let's go back to this graphic right here because we have to talk about this. And that is the game of the week because we only have two games that we really go back to with the CFL. So our choice of the game of the week is this one right here. The 3 o'clock contest between the Argonauts and the Alouettes. Score was 30-28 for the East Division final. In this CFL contest, Argonauts win this game 30-28 in Montreal as the road team. Let's take a look at the statistics real quick. Chad Kelly, 182 passing yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions with 4 carries for 26 yards before he went down with that ankle injury, as Ryan talked about. 73 passing yards were added in by Nick Arbuckle, the backup quarterback. Kadeem Carey had 12 carries for 92 yards, 1 receptions for -3 yards, but still was enough to help this team put up 2 more points than the Alouettes. DeMonte Coxey, 5 receptions for 105 yards with a touchdown as well. Mekhi Polk, 6 receptions for 72 receiving yards. The Argonauts defense was a little bit active on this day as they had 4 total sacks and 2 interceptions, both of those by Benji Franklin. Our man Liram, I even got to bring us back on the screen for this because we get to talk about Liram. Liram is back on our screen. Not our screen. Well, us audio-wise, he's back on our screen. He had 3 field goals on the day out of 3 attempts. Perfect on the day, contributing 12 of those 30 points with a long of 26 yards. Cody Fajardo had 330 passing yards for the Alouettes, 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions to match that total by Chad Kelly on the other side, but also put up 8 carries for 49 yards on the ground as well. Walter Fletcher only had 20 more rushing yards than his quarterback with 69 rushing yards on 8 carries, but did put up a rushing touchdown. He also added 2 receptions for 31 receiving yards and a receiving touchdown as well. Keon Julian Grant, 7 receptions for 93 receiving yards and a receiving touchdown. Austin Mack also had 3 receptions for 32 yards and a touchdown. He wasn't Tyrone Alize Mack dummy status, but he did put up some decent stats and got a touchdown for his team. Alouettes defense had 1 sack on the day, along with 2 interceptions by Darnell Sankey and Najee Murray. Jose Maltos was also perfect for field goals, adding 3 field goals out of 3 attempts, contributing 10 points to his team's 28-point total with a long of 47 yards. Looking back at this game, I know it's our game of the week, but did you see any Dumpster Pelicans participating in this contest?
Yeah, I'll talk about them in the snowflake of the week. But this was a game of momentum swings, and you can tell, and especially in the first half, the momentum was going the way of the Montreal Alouettes, especially early in the contest. And then it swung back in Toronto's direction. Part of that had to do with the pick 6 by one Benji Franklin, with Walter Fletcher not making the pass, bobbling it, and then goes right into the arms of Benji Franklin. He takes it back for a touchdown. And then when Chad Kelly went down with that absolutely horrific ankle injury, and our best wishes to him and his recovery efforts, because it was very similar to the Aiden Hutchinson injury that happened in Dallas a few weeks ago, where his toe got caught in the turf, and you just see what happens to his ankle. It was not pretty at all. And after that point, the momentum swung in Montreal's favor, and they went up outscoring Toronto in that fourth quarter by a 12-3 margin. Unfortunately, they tried to play catch up and they went for 2 twice, and they couldn't convert an either 2-point conversion. One was a sack and one was an interception in the end zone. So it was momentum swings. It was momentum swing back and forth. Unfortunately for the Alouettes, they just ran out of time, and Nick Arbuckle did a great job on the second to last play of the game, where it was a second down, and you see Beverett trying to cover a wide receiver, I think it was Dejon Brissett, no, DeVaris Daniels. And you could tell Beverett was out of position, and he couldn't quite catch up to Daniels. And you should see the ball kind of sailing towards the Daniels direction, and Daniels just stops in his tracks, and Beverett clearly interferes with him. Ball goes sailing, but the flags come out, and he's like, "Oh, game over. That's it." They just ran out of time. So Montreal had a great opportunity to seize control. If they had tried an onside kick, they figured their defense could do the job, could get the ball back, so they could try to drive the field and get a field goal. But unfortunately, they just ran out of time in Toronto on the way to the Grey Cup for the second time in 3 seasons. So congratulations to Toronto. And as an Alouettes fan, it's a little disheartening to see them just kind of literally give the game away on 6 different occasions, between 4 fumbles lost, 2 interceptions, one of them being a pick six. Everything just seemed off this game, even though they were up. Even though they were up at one point, they had a 9-point lead they had a 9-point lead at one point. They had a 9-point lead in the second quarter, and they just couldn't hold it together. And that pick six was just the biggest difference maker in the game. Between that and all the turnovers that they were making, they got shut out in the third quarter. That was a huge big turn right there too. So, congratulations to the Argonauts. They're going back to the Grey Cup. It'll be interesting to see on Sunday what happens with Nick Arbuckle at the controls of this Argonauts offense. And considering they lost Cameron Dukes a few weeks ago to injury in just basically a throwaway game in Edmonton, I'd be curious to see who they have in their lineup as a backup if Arbuckle goes down, or he's not playing to the level that his coach Ryan Dinwiddie is playing. Now, interestingly enough, in the 2007 Grey Cup, that was Ryan Dinwiddie's first start in the CFL. So a little bit of history there. So he's going back with Nick Arbuckle as a starting quarterback, and Arbuckle's a veteran. He knows what to do, and he making the right throws at the right time. Had those 73 passing yards, was converting key first downs. Managed to get that pass interference call on Tyrese Beverett to basically seal the game for the Argonauts. So this was just a game of momentum swings, and Toronto got the last bit of momentum to put them over the top with that penalty that ended things.
So, with our picks last week, as we were down to the final 4, both of us split. We both went 1-1 to end our picks for this CFL playoffs. We both had homer picks too. You selected the Alouettes. I selected the Argos. Your homer pick was the Alouettes. My homer pick was the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Both of us wrong with that one. Now, at least we both go into this 1-1, go down to the Grey Cup tomorrow, have something to look forward to. But we also, speaking of things to look forward to, we have one more thing to look forward to, and that is an additional game to cover for this week. And for that, we have to take it to our Monday show, or not our Monday show, but our Monday game. And for that, we got to flip back to original Total Football Talk. Click on this right here. And now let's take it back to Extra. We're back to Extra. So with that being said, we still have one more game to cover from this past Monday night. And that is where the Miami Dolphins traveled to LA to take on the Rams this past Monday, November 11th, 11-11. Tua Tagovailoa leads the way with 207 passing yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Also had 1 carry for -1 yards. The Dolphins offense puts up 22 carries for 67 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown by Malik Washington. Jalen Waddle puts up 3 receptions for 57 reception yards. Tyreek Hill has 3 receptions for 16 yards, but also adds a receiving touchdown. The Dolphins defense put up some work on this night as well. They had 4 sacks with the interception by Anthony Walker Jr. Jason Sanders, the kicker, was perfect on the night, 3 for 3 on the day. The long of 50 yards, contributed 11 of those 23 points for the Dolphins. Matthew Stafford put up 293 passing yards on the day with an interception, also has 1 carry for 0 yards. Kieran Williams has 12 carries for 62 yards on the night and 5 receptions for 20 yards as well. Puka Nacua has 9 receptions for 98 receiving yards, and Cooper Kupp had 7 receptions for 80 yards as well. The defense for the Rams puts up 3 sacks with an interception by Christian Roseboom, and Joshua Carty was 5 for 6. He was not perfect, but he was 5 out of 6 with a long of 55 yards, contributing 15 points, which was all of the points the Rams had for the night. Looking back on this, Mr. McCarthy, what are your overall thoughts on this Dumpster Pelican matchup this past Monday night?
Where's that graphic? You know what graphic I'm looking at?
Yeah, where's the button?
Hit that button.
The button disappeared, Mr. McCarthy.
No!
Oh, wait, no, here it is. Psych, I got it.
There you go. Yeah, if this game had to be brought up in the World Court for Human Atrocities, this would be one of those games. This was awful. I mean, Miami had 238 total yards, yet managed to win this game. That's how bad this game was for the Dolphins offensively. Even with Tua back in the lineup, their offense, which was at this point in the season last year, they were leading the league in points.
Mm-hmm.
Their offense has been just absolute garbage this year. I mean, Grant, they're still somehow still in the playoff hunt, like a lot of teams in the AFC are. But you know, AFC is a garbage conference this year, man. This was no exception. But their defense pulled through. Their defense did the job. 4 sacks, interception. Calais Campbell sealed the game with a sack, and Tyreek Hill doing Tyreek Hill things. Yeah, 3 receptions, 16 yards. He was locked down for the game, but he scored the 1 touchdown that basically was the game winner. As for the Rams, this team's going to win on defense. This team's going to win based on their defense. And they had a good, decent game as well. 3 sacks, 1 interception, 1 turnover. But their offense I don't know what it is with their offense. It seemed even with the genius that is Sean McVay and this team, I've said on No Credentials Required, dang, that this team is scrappy. This team's a scrappy team. At the same time, even with the genius that is Sean McVay, this offense has just been shooting blanks. Matthew Stafford, 293 passing yards. Can't put it in the end zone. Kyron Williams, 62 yards rushing, 50 yards receiving. Put the ball in the end zone. Their kicker had all their points. You don't win. Sing this to the tune of, you don't win friends with salad. You don't win games with field goals. You don't win games with field goals. Unless your defense is playing absolutely lights out, you can't win games with field goals. And that's what basically was the game. They could convert on field goals, they just couldn't get in the end zone. And the 1 touchdown that counted won the game. And that was for the visitors.
Sure as expletive did. You know what expletive I would have put in there. But I can't say it right here and now. This would be bad practice for me. So right here and now, looking at this game was absolutely terrible. I was at work on this night. The game was on the television, and it was tough to watch. I had to go back and watch more highlights than anything at the end. And when looking at the highlights, I realized how little of them they were, especially when you look at this Rams team, with the fact that all they could do is put up field goals in the night. The Dolphins defense did their job on this night, but the Dolphins defense has not been that good this year to really speak about them in that highly into that high of a context. The Rams offense has not been what they were 3 years ago. All right. There's been injuries. There's been departures to other teams. There's been some retirements. Aaron Donald, over this past offseason definitely was an impact for that team. But the fact that, you have Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, and you have Matthew Stafford. I think this is Matthew Stafford's swan song. This is, him and Aaron Rodgers both are looking like they're both at the very, very end point of their careers. It's time for both of these franchises, the Jets and the Rams, to figure this out and decide who they're going to go with next. Because this Rams team, they've still got talent on it. They still have young talent. They still could have moved Cooper Kupp before the trade deadline, but they decided not to because the game right before the trade deadline, or no, 2 games before the trade deadline, he and Puka were back in the lineup, and they both did damage in that night game. So looking at it for what it is, they can make a few moves this offseason and be right back in the fold. But, we'll talk about the Jets another time. But, I know that's a sore subject for you. But when it comes to that, and it should be because of the amount of hype, and I was one of those during the offseason saying that they were going to be one of the top teams in the AFC this year. So they've been a letdown for me too because they were one of my AFC picks to be in the top. So I get it. But, this Dolphins team, you can't celebrate so much because you look at what Tua has done and has happened to him and the injuries, the head injuries. He's running with that one run attempt that was negative yards, by the way. And what does he do in that one run? As he's running, he leads with his head. Okay? He leads with his head, Brian. So when I think about this, the amount of concussions this man has had over the past couple years, past few years, you include college, okay? And you haven't figured this out, that you should not be leading with your head. When the expletive is wrong with this guy, and he be taken off people are taken off the road for reckless driving, okay? He is reckless playing.
Yeah.
The NFL force him off of the field like the police and the lawmakers out here force people off the road who can't drive properly.
Yeah, if it wasn't Mike McDaniel's boy, he would have been pulled off the field. Anytime. I remember a good decade ago, the Houston Astros had a policy in that you don't slide head first because they saw an injury. They had an injury to one of their players on the field where he was sliding head first. His shoulder got separated because I remember it's very similar to the Derek Jeter injury that happened in 2001, where sliding head first, player got in front of third base, and his shoulder went right into the knee of the third baseman, separated his shoulder. He was out for a good month. Same kind of circumstance that happened to an Astros player, and they put in a policy for all their teams, not just for the Astros, but for every single level. You don't slide head first. If you slide head first, regardless of whether you're out or you're safe, you're getting yanked. The same kind of thing needs to happen in the NFL. And I think coaches need to smarten up a little bit when it comes to head injuries. And I remember when Tua came back a few weeks ago and he was running and he slid. And the crowd at Hard Rock Stadium went nuts because he slid instead of diving head first. They went crazy. They went absolutely crazy because they were cheering for him and they said, yes, he's learning. And now you're seeing the same habits come back. I understand the need to get the first down because in the rule of the NFL is if you slide instead of being tackled, the ball is marked down as a spot at the place where you started sliding instead of where you're touched. So I get the mentality of trying to get the first down, but man, this is a major organ in your body. This is your brain. You can't function if you don't have a brain. If your brain's not intact. So coaches really need to smarten up in the NFL and tell their quarterbacks, slide. I don't care if you're trying to get the first down. We'll get another down. Slide. Don't dive. If you dive, you're getting the old yank. We gotta protect you.
Slide, don't die. This has to be his motto.
Has to be commercial.
Yes. What do we think about that? But and they made that they amended that rule not too long ago because back in the day you could slide and it wasn't until you were touched
Right.
that it was like you could slide. And I remember the one game, it was many years ago when they were known as the Redskins. They were playing the 49ers in FedEx.
Mhm.
And they were getting by with it was a really, 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 really big downpour in this game. There was a lot of rain. And there was slides that they were sliding for 10 yards.
Yeah.
And they were getting literally first downs from the slide of that. And it wasn't until they were touched, they were down. But, when you got a guy that's 5-6 yards off to the right and somebody is sliding ahead, they could get 10, 11 yards before they're even touched just because of the angle of where they're at. So that's where it had to be switched up, like you were talking about, where now it's once you go down and you slide, that's where the ball's marked at. And in all fairness, that's where it should be. I mean, I believe they've got that right, because that was too much of an unfair advantage for the 49ers in that game at FedEx when they won that game over the then Redskins. But, I mean, the Washington team was absolutely terrible anyway. So I think they would have found a way to lose that game regardless if it was raining or not. But looking at this for what it is, Tua, when I was watching that, and I wasn't watching many points in this game because I was working for one, but for two, I just couldn't, because I mean it was just looking ugly pretty early on. I did go back and watch the highlights, but one of the things that I caught before I even had to go back and watch the highlights, when I looked up at the TV, because it's right above my desk, I look right above and I see Tua run, and I'm looking up like this, Ryan, and I'm like, get the out of here. I'm looking at the TV, and this guy who has had multiple head injuries, I get it, I'm still looking up at the TV, and he is leading with his head, and what does he get? -1 rushing yards for leading with his head. What good did that do? Absolutely nothing.
None.
They need to get him out of there and teach him the true ways, because yes, he showed us once or twice before. He knows how to slide. Congratulations. But if anybody I don't know if you've watched the American Sports Story on FX with Aaron Hernandez.
Fun fact about that miniseries: my uncle is an extra.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome.
He's an SEC line person.
Nice.
Yeah.
So have you watched the series knowing that? Well,
he told me. He's the one who he told me. He's like, guess where I've been. I'm like,
okay,
where have you been? I'll tell you a story later on.
Okay, yes, because we might get too sideways with it. But
yes.
I was saying that if you can get past certain, there are a few elements in the series that they take a little too far. Okay, that's the nicest way I'm gonna put it in political terms. Okay, but the one thing I will tell you is when you get to the end, and everybody knows the Aaron Hernandez story by this point. He's gone, right? And they examine his brain, and you see pretty much how, had he lived another 10 years, which we're now at that 10-year mark. We're just about, because he passed, it was 2017. This was 7 years ago that he passed away. So we would be right around that mark by now, where his motor skills would really be falling off a cliff. Okay. They predicted, with as badly damaged as his brain was, that he might have lived another 10 years and wouldn't have been of sound mind. Or it was, if he had lived another 10 years, I believe it was the way it was worded, he wouldn't be of sound mind. He wouldn't have any motors. He would be practically like an 80-year-old person with dementia, pretty much. And that's hard to fathom when you think about, we have all this evidence in front of us now. For the past 10, 15, 20 years, they've been diving really hard into CTE, especially since the Chris Benoit stuff with professional wrestling. Okay. And they've also looked at football big since Junior Seau and what happened with him. Right. So thinking about all that, if you're Tua Tagovailoa and you've had these concussions, why in the expletive are you leading with your mother-fathering head?
Yep.
So I had to rant for a second. Sorry, people.
No, quite all right.
I hope it was entertaining.
No, it's a justified rant.
I just don't understand it, especially when Tua's only been back a few weeks. The American Sports Story has been on for the past 10 weeks. We just had the 10th and final episode this past week. Okay. So through the majority of your injury, through all your injury, you could have been educating yourself through another NFL player's story. It's ignorance. I don't know any other way to explain it.
It's either ignorance or it's just instinct, and your body and your brain aren't communicating.
And like Six said too, he's hard-headed. I mean, that goes all along with what we were saying and giving the description of it. Dante even chimes in with, it should be a penalty like the defense when offensive guys do it.
Lead with your head? Yeah. It should be. It should be considered targeting. Because you're using your helmet as a weapon.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. You're both on point with that. And the field was so waterlogged that it turned into a slip and slide. Yes, that was if you're talking about the Redskins and 49ers game, from I think it was 2017, 2018, somewhere in there. It might have been 2019. It was somewhere. It was when I first got into media. I wasn't at that game with Legacy Maker back then, but it was one of the ones in between them. I think it was the year I went to the Lions. I think it was 2019 when it was around the time the Lions played the Redskins, and it was Dwayne Haskins it was Dwayne Haskins' first win when he beat the Lions, and I want to say it was within weeks of that. I could be wrong, but we'll have to go back and fact check. Then he did it with the pick he threw. So he did it twice. I forgot all about that. The mother father did it twice.
And then Sick asked, "What shouldn't Tua start wearing a Guardian cap?" They leave that up to the player. It's a player's choice to wear the Guardian cap.
Oh yeah. I accidentally clicked past it. My bad, Sick.
Okay.
Yeah. Shouldn't Tua start wearing a Guardian cap? I believe he should.
He should, but they leave it up to the players. It's the player's choice.
It's like Tua chooses to be a vegetable. I mean, he's starting to have a family, kids, you want to be around for your kids and actually be able to see them achieve their goals. Why in the expletive are you going to keep doing this?
Can't answer that for you.
Yeah, I don't even know, even if I won a lottery pick to be able to a sit down one-on-one interview with Tua. And I just flat out ask him, why are you acting like a dumpster pelican and leading with your head? He probably wouldn't answer the question, but he might laugh at it, at least calling him a dumpster pelican. Because, I mean, dumpster pelicans don't think. They just play very badly. And he plays good most of the time, but he makes moronic decisions when it comes to his dome piece. Other than that, when it comes to anything other than positioning his dome piece in the places that he shouldn't be positioning it in, I feel like he's fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. I had to go off on Tua on this rant. We were talking Monday football, and Tua was the highlight of it, and the things that he should and shouldn't be doing were highlights of it. And with that being said, that is the end of our opening drive.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989. On two. Ready?
Total Football Talk Extra.
Where my dogs at? One of them right there. Mr. McCarthy's going to give us our pick for his dog of the week.
My pick for dog, or should I say dogs of the week? I'm picking a position group. And that position group is a group that doesn't typically get a whole lot of love, like Led Zeppelin. A whole lot of love. I'm picking the Winnipeg Blue Bombers offensive line. No sacks allowed to the Rough Riders defense. No sacks thrown into the Rough Riders defense, who have been a very good pass rush this season. Also paved the way against a very good rush defense for over 190 rush yards, 119 of those to Brady Oliveira, who, congratulations to him, he won most outstanding player and during last night's CFL Player Awards. So, my opinion, should have been Bo Levi Mitchell, but that was up to the writers. But to the media who selected him, or the judges who selected him. But Winnipeg Blue Bombers offensive line, they've been playing solid for since week 4. Since we went 0-4, they've cleaned up things. They've established their power. The power is in the run game. The power is in protecting Zach Collaros so he can do the things that he can do that has made him arguably the best quarterback for the last 5 seasons. And they did it in this game against in the West Final, at home in front of a capacity crowd at Princess Auto Stadium. And O-line, I'm a former O-lineman myself, don't get enough love. O-line doesn't get enough love, but I'm going to give it to them. Just going to give it to you, Winnipeg Blue Bombers O-line. You get my dog, or dogs, of the week.
I like it. I like your pick for dogs of the week, and I'm going to surprise you with my mother-fathering pick.
Oh.
This guy, and I'm going to go with one, not going to go with the whole sector like Mr. McCoffey did. And he went with the whole sector. But I mean, I still can't get mad at his pick. I mean, it was a good pick. But I'm going to go with somebody who was a decisive factor in the game. And yes, you can argue that it was the offense that was the decisive factor for positioning it. But I'm going to take it a step further. In our game of the week that ended in a 30-28 score, it was 28-27 before it was 30-28. And who was the one who was perfect on the day with scoring for this team out of 3 attempts? A man who I can't pronounce his last name still to this day. I've tried. We've had a teaching class on here.
We did.
I got it okay, and I did okay, and then I forgot how to say his name. Whether it's or Honolulu, I don't know. But I know his first name is Liram. That is my pick for my dog of the week. Is Liram, the kicker for the Toronto Argonauts. Why? Because he made not 1, not 2, but mother-fathering 3 field goals on this day and made the pressure kick when it was a 20-27 score, and he made it a 30-28 score, and the Argos won this mother-fathering game, all on the leg of Liram. Liram is the man. Liram is my mother-fathering pick, and that is who I choose for this week's dog of the week.
Solid job. If he winds up winning the Grey Cup for the Toronto Argonauts, we're going to have to do another lesson on how to pronounce his name, just for the hell of it.
We're going to have to do that, and we're going to have to do a whole episode next week on just Liram. This is going to be the Liram episode, the Liram experience. I will start blowing up the internet. I will probably fail, but I'll start blowing up the internet trying to get him on as a guest for next Friday's show. If it works, it probably won't, but I will exhaust all options possible and probably be blowing you up and also figuring out ways collectively. We've got to get Liram on here if that's the case. He won't come, but we'll try.
You know what? Let's do this. Let's go a step further. I'm gonna be a habitual line stepper here.
Ooh,
like Charlie Murphy. like some habitual line stepper. Whoever wins next week, we try to get somebody from that team on Total Football Talk. Extra.
I mean, even if we don't succeed for next week, let's see if we can make it a goal within the first month after the Grey Cup. I mean, I think we should still try for next week because it'll be hot news next week.
Yeah, for sure.
But considering the fact that they have just, whoever wins would have just won it the week before, they'll have to be doing some type of celebratory event next week. It may not be feasible. They may want to take a vacation. They've played in football.
They may still be celebrating.
Yes. They've literally been going about this for 8 months at this point. So, yeah, 7-8 months, somewhere in there. So they might just want a break. I was hoping the Alouettes could get there so that we could get Kyle Spiker on here, or Speaker, however you say it. But I was hoping to get him because of that one reel that we had made several weeks back. But with this, for our dogs of the week, solid picks. And now it's time to go in the 180 and discuss the snowflakes.
Total Football Talk Extra.
Hey, it's not Fat Albert, but it's time for the snowflake of the week. With that being said, hey, with that being said, let's send it on over to McCoffee, see who he's got for his negative player of the week.
The snowflake of the week goes to another unit, but it's an entire unit. It's on one side of the ball. The Montreal Alouettes offense. Yes, they scored 28 points. Yes, they had 470 yards of offense. They actually ran the ball effectively. As my cat comes in and says hello. Hi, buddy. You see his tail on the screen. That's right. But 6 turnovers. 6. This many. 6 turnovers. Hi, buddy.
OCE.
OCE, Orange Cat Energy. Gotta make that into an energy drink. Maybe I'll make that a beer called Orange Cat Energy.
Tail is just...
Hi, buddy. He loves me. So 6 turnovers. 6 in a must-win game is unacceptable. Put the ball on the turf 4 times. Picked up by Toronto's defense 4 times. 2 interceptions by Cody Fajardo. One of those being returned for a touchdown by Benji Franklin, fun statistic, that was his 6th interception in as many weeks.
Wow.
That guy's been on a tear. He could make a big difference in Sunday's game in Vancouver. And that pick 6 pretty much sealed the Alouettes' fate. They had to climb back out of that hole, and that was such a momentum swing there for them. But in addition to 6 turnovers, 4 fumbles, 2 interceptions, they also the offensive line surrendered only 4. They surrendered 4 sacks. And that has been the bugaboo of the Montreal Alouettes pretty much the entire season. Their defense has been solid. Their defense has been one of the best defensive units in the CFL. They were last year, especially over the last 9 weeks, going into the Grey Cup, where, Cody Fajardo had his heroics, but in this game, he was not a hero. He was unfortunately the GOAT because he was one who contributed to, I believe, 2 of those fumbles, as well as those 2 interceptions. Great. He throws three touchdown passes. Great. Did you win the game? No, because you contributed to part of the problem. So, great game statistically, but it wasn't enough. And Montreal's got a lot of questions to answer after this season. Fajardo's got 1 more year on his contract, but Davis Alexander, who came in and filled in for him magnificently when Fajardo went out with a hamstring injury, is a free agent. There are going to be teams that are going to pursue his services. I suspect both Alberta teams are going to want to court his services. If Bo Levi Mitchell decides not to come back, I could see Hamilton trying to court his services. But they got some decisions to make in the offseason, and I think one of those has to affect the offensive line, who did a poor job. One of them is just the other one was the Davis Alexander situation. If he's their quarterback of the future, they gotta make an offer to him now. But to sum things up, snowflake of the week, Montreal offense left too many points on the field, put too many balls on the turf, gave up too many sacks, and they were a big difference maker in this. That was a big difference maker in this game, in the East Final. And they're my snowflake of this week, which makes me sad because I wanted them to go to the Grey Cup.
Yeah, I know you did. That's why you chose them. I mean, I wanted the Rough Riders to go to, and I got to get it out now because I'm not going to have a chance to do that for quite a while after today. So I'm getting all my Rough Riders takes out today because I'm going to miss saying it. I'm going to have to find an excuse just to bring it up next week. No, I probably won't be able to. But anyway, great choice for you and your snowflake of the week. And especially given, who your choice was to get to the Grey Cup. I was about to light up the Rough Riders and probably say their name like 17 times just to get it even more out of my system. But I feel like with today, because we are transitioning this show into a little bit different coverage, moving forward, because CFL is moving out by next week will be our last recap of the CFL for the year 2024, because there is no more CFL after this week until 2025. We'll be talking more NFL, potentially college, arena, whatever kinds of football that collectively Ryan and I discuss, off the air and figure out, ideas on how to plan this out. But for my choice, I'm going to go back to the NFL for my Snowflake of the Week. And I know I gave a Snowflake of the Week this past Monday on Total Football Talk, but it was before this game, because now that we are doing Monday night games on Total Football Talk Extra and potentially Thursdays moving forward, I got to talk to Cole about that later. But as of right now, it will at least be Mondays. I have to look at one particular area from this Monday night game as who is my Snowflake of the Week. And I've already thrown shade at Tua, okay? And Tua won. So I got my shade out earlier for him, and I can't give him the Snowflake of the Week because, again, they won. I can't put the Snowflake of the Week entirely on a particular player or on the offense for the Rams, because they all kind of sucked on that day as to why they couldn't really put up any points, because your field goal kicker bailed you out on 5 field goals. So my choice for the Snowflake of the Week is coming from the LA Rams. It is somebody who makes plays for the offense, who draws up the plays, and it isn't the offensive coordinator, but close. It's the head coach, Sean McVay. Hey, Sean. I'm Drew Willingham. Welcome to Total Football Talk Extra. If you're ever watching this program, and if you're ever watching yourself as a Snowflake of the Week, because you deserve it this week, bud, your team's 4-5. 3 years ago, you won a mother-fathering Super Bowl. But you're 4-5 now. And you've also lost some games since gaining back Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp in the same mother-fathering offense. And you also still have your Super Bowl MVP quarterback. Now, is he of the same caliber of what he was when he won said MVP in the Super Bowl? No. Is he at the same caliber as he was when this team of the Detroit Lions back in the day were 0-16? No. What he is somebody who can manage a game if you give him the right play. If you, on your headset, call in the right play. But apparently you're not. Against defenses that you should be able to read properly, because you are the offensive guru, that being Sean McVay, who is not even 40 years old yet. You are still not the youngest, not the second youngest, but you are still the third youngest coach in the NFL. You being the third youngest coach in the NF mother-fathering L should know better into how to draw up plays against a defense of Miami that is not as good as even half the defenses in the league, okay? My Snowflake this week goes to Sean mother-father McVay, the head coach of the 4-5 LA Rams, 3 years removed from their Super Bowl championship, 2 years removed from him saying he was going to retire, and 1 year away from getting booted out the door if you don't turn things around. The 3-2-1 effect. Sean McVay is my number 1 pick for the Snowflake of the mother-fathering week.
I came in for the tail end because I had to tend to my cat real quick. He was whining and needed me, so demands my attention because my sister's not home. But no, I agree. I mean, I've talked about Sean McVay possibly being on his way out. I mean, he probably discussed it after last season, I suspect. But yeah, you've got an agent, you got a quarterback, and Matthew Stafford, who's getting older. He's not getting any younger, and they haven't been able to develop a quarterback that will take over for him. You had him in Jared Goff, but you jettisoned him off to Detroit to get yourselves a ring. You got that ring. What happened after that? Where you been after that? You had wild card appearance last year. You missed the playoffs the year after you won the Super Bowl because FTK. You don't know what that stands for. I won't say it here because it's a family show. But basically, if you know that abbreviation, you know that abbreviation because they wanted to win. The Rams wanted to win. They wanted to bring a title to Los Angeles, when they came back, couldn't do it. They didn't once in St. Louis. They wanted to try to do it again, run it back. In Los Angeles, they got their big win, but fans ain't showing up. Fans ain't showing up. And the fans in Los Angeles, look, Los Angeles, when they announced that the Chargers and the Rams were coming back, I said, this is going to be a disaster because LA don't care. LA don't care about NFL. We've seen it in the past. You saw it with the Rams and the Raiders. Although the Raiders, many still consider in LA consider the Raiders their team, not the Rams, not the Chargers, the Raiders. When they left California to go to sunnier skies in Las Vegas, and the Rams and the Chargers decided to move to Los Angeles, said this is going to be a disaster. This is going to be a disaster because once the teams start losing, nobody's going to show up to the games at SoFi. Nobody. So thank your lucky stars, LA, that the Olympics are coming in 2028 because nobody's showing up for Rams games. Only they're kind of like the MetLife of the West in that other teams, the visiting teams fans will show up instead of Jets and Giants fans, mostly because that stadium is sterile and plastic and is unattractive. It's ugly. It's the ugliest stadium we've ever been in. And I know I've been there several times. But SoFi is going to be one of those. It's going to be MetLife West if you don't start winning games.
Oh, you've been to SoFi?
No.
Oh.
Been to MetLife.
Oh, MetLife. Yeah, because you are in that area. I misunderstood. But yes, everything you said was spot on. It's going to be funny to think if the Detroit Lions have a team for the next 10 years because of the Matt Stafford trade.
Mm-hmm.
Because they are still the number one team in the NFC, and in a lot of eyes, the number one team in the NFL, even over the Chiefs, even though the Chiefs is the Chiefs, and you should still be putting some spec on their name in the words of Birdman, because
absolutely.
They are undefeated, and they're finding ways to win. I don't care if they potentially would have been called in 99.9% of other games for encroachment for that block last week, but that digress because of how much of a slight bit of a head start they had for that. But I'm gonna let it go, and they're still undefeated regardless if the refs are helping them out or not. Okay, because a lot of people are saying it. I'm just repeating what they're saying. Can
you provide proof? That's the matter. That's the crux of the matter. Can you provide proof? Yes.
Until proof is given, I'm basically just repeating what others are saying. Okay. Myself, I'm still putting respect on their name because they have won 2 consecutive Super Bowls. They have won 3 out of the last 5 Super Bowls. And they could potentially win a 4th one here very soon. But the Lions are a real mother-fathering team, and they have been coming and coming and coming for the past 3 years and getting better and biting off kneecaps, and they could have their quarterback for the next 10 years in Jared Goff. I would say probably the next 5 to 6, respectfully. But you wouldn't have even had Stafford for that long had he stayed on the Lions. And I don't even know if they would have been able to consistently build the type of team they've been able to build over the past few years with him, because when he was in Detroit and even in certain periods in LA, he's been injury prone. So, it was for that one year, that one true year where they won the Super Bowl, he stayed relatively healthy, and that's how they were able to win it. But he's had questions with his injury bug. So I know my rant on Sean McVay went a little bit over, and of course you gave your opinion on it too.
Once again, justified.
yes, another justified take. And one thing I'm going to bring up from earlier from our man Sick Diggy, who's in the house, still said when we were talking about CTE in Australia, the matter of CTE has been a big issue inside rugby. Legendary player and sports pundit, the King Wally Lewis, came out regarding his continuous battles with CTE.
Yeah, the one thing about CTE I will give a warning about. I know it's a popular issue. Concussions are a big issue. I wouldn't say it's a popular issue, but this is relatively new. Neuroscience overall, I don't know if it's a relatively new thing because we're a new science, a new area of expertise for specialties for doctors, but Like we're just starting to see what's happening with concussions and with CTE. Could concussions be a factor? We're not really sure. I mean, I going outside of another sport, talking about hockey. Sidney Crosby missed a year and a half of his career because of concussions, but it related more to his spinal column, especially in his neck, and especially in the neck area, rather than the head. That's what they're focusing on when his injuries came out, when his battles with concussion came about. They were focusing on the spinal cord. Same thing with Jim McMahon and all his health issues. They were focusing on his spinal cord because if he flushed out the spinal cord, they make adjustments to his spinal cord, it flushes out the spinal fluid that's been building up the fluid in the brain, flushes everything out. So, yeah, I mean, CTE is relatively new in the medical field, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Sick or Drew. But we're just kind of starting to really touch we haven't even touched the surface yet. We've barely touched the surface of what CTE could be, what actually causes it, whether it's concussions or other blows to the head. Yeah, we're just starting to figure things out. So yeah, I mean, if former athletes who play not contact, collision sports come out and say, yeah, I'm having these issues, we got to figure this out because I want to live as long as I can without all these mental issues and things that affect my brain, then yeah, absolutely go to it. And by the way, we actually just, speaking of other sports, we actually just had the 19th anniversary of Eddie Guerrero's death yesterday. Don't forget him. So,
wow. Yeah, it was
2005.
Was
2005. Yeah, 19 years.
Wow. One of the greatest to ever do it.
You mentioned Chris Benoit, so, and all his stuff. And, I mean, Eddie Guerrero passed away from another organ, having some issues with another internal organ. But yeah, it made me thought of Eddie Guerrero's passing 19 years yesterday.
It's wild. Oh, man. Wow. Yeah, I can't believe it's been that long. I mean, I can, but I mean, the fact that time has flown by that fast has been absolutely wild. But yes, as we are professional wrestling fans diving into that realm right here and now, we got to say that tonight, if you're a football fan, professional wrestling fan, or a boxing fan, try to have 2 TVs on because you got SmackDown at 8. You've also got the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight around that time as well. But we still have another comment to get to before we get to our last review of the week. And the problem is how it looks bad, how it looks back in the day. It was fun until your favorite quarterback is out of the game, like San Francisco.
Is he referring to the 1990 NFC Championship game between the Giants and the 49ers?
When
Dante,
Montana
are you referring to that?
That was Montana was knocked out and Young had to come in.
Yep,
that's a good one. Or he could be referring to when they got all the way to the NFC Championship game a couple of years ago and Purdy was knocked out. 2022.
Well, that was an arm injury.
Yeah. But he said, yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember Joe Montana being out for a good, I think it was out the next season, and they traded him to Kansas City. And he didn't play for like 2 years.
Yeah, because Dante's like, even though you're, a few years older than me, Dante's around my age, like 30s. So he knows about that. So yeah, that's why I can say that he knows about
one of the greatest games I've ever watched.
He said also when they knocked out Purdy.
Yeah, that was when Hassan Reddick chopped his arm. Hassan Reddick chopped his arm and he tore his UCL. That wasn't a head injury. No.
But in the 90
yes.
game, it was with Montana.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. I remember that because he stopped when Lawrence Taylor was chasing him. He stopped in his tracks and Leonard Marshall came up behind him and just absolutely crushed him into the ground. It was one of the most vicious hits you'll ever see, and absolutely clean. Too.
It's clean, but like he said, it looks bad.
It looked bad. Yeah, it looked bad. It probably felt, you asked Joe Montana, it probably felt horrible too. Because he got absolutely blindside crushed.
You might still be mother, father, and feeling it on cold days today. Who knows? I mean,
Probably why he lives in California and not in
Stays
the
warm,
middle of the country.
That makes sense. That definitely makes sense. And if you are just tuning in to No Credentials Required, Comey Media, Sertoba Media for the first time watching this show, get ready for many other programs that are on these networks. Subscribe now and never miss out on new content. Like, share, and subscribe. All videos that you watch helps us out here in the algorithm. Some weeks we do pretty good. Some weeks we do okay. Some weeks we don't even show up. But hey, we show up. I mean, just the video didn't show up on the stream. But hey, you help us out. We will help you out with entertaining coverage. We've gone through the majority of our show, but we still have one more thing that we have to get to, and that is the 2-minute drill.
Total Football Talk Extra.
Now with the 2-minute drill, we have to take it to the Sunday game. And for one more time in this show, let's take it back to the Total Football Talk platform and click the Sunday games banner. Now let's go back to X. As we are back here for Extra, we have to talk about the upcoming Grey Cup. And yes, I got it done in time, Mr. McCarthy. Here it is. The 2024 Grey Cup featuring the Toronto Argonauts traveling to Winnipeg to take on the Blue Bombers this Sunday, November 17th, 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. Who do you have and why there, Mr. McCarthy?
Whew, that's tough pick. But I'll give it a little history. The last time the Toronto Argonauts lost a Grey Cup game was the year you were born, 1987. They've been to 9 Grey Cups. They've been to 9 Grey Cups since, and they haven't lost it. Have not lost. However, that game, that 1987 game, took place at BC Place in Vancouver. So, got a couple of factors coming into this game. Number one, the history. Toronto has won their last 9 Grey Cups. This is their 10th Grey Cup. They haven't lost. Winnipeg, they're coming in. They want a measure of revenge after what happened in 2022. Well, they came in, they were dominant, had a great season. And they run into the Toronto Argonauts, who were on quite a heater. They were a buzzsaw coming into that game. They're a buzzsaw coming into this game too. You know, look at what Toronto's done over the last month and a half, last 2 months. See what they've done. Winnipeg's been equal to the task, even after that 0-4 start. Yes, I'll give myself a pat in the back, trying to separate my shoulder. When Drew asked me when they got off to that 0-4 start, they were actually 0-2 at the time. We didn't know they're going to be 0-4. He asked me, can this team still be a playoff team? Winnipeg, I said, absolutely. Absolutely. Just need to get healthy and start winning games. Well, guess what happened? They got healthy. They started winning games. Even when key players went down, like Nick Dembski. He went down for a bit or spell. He came back. He contributed. But Winnipeg just kept winning. Adam Bighill, the captain of their defense, the linebacker, out for the year. They still kept playing. They kept playing. They kept winning games. And they have been on this ride since July. Since the end of July, they've just been on this ride. They win a whole bunch of games in a row. And they're at this point, they're just like, these two teams are coming in. It's two buzzsaws when they try to meet. When they meet, you just see sparks. You see sparks. You see them deflect off each other. Kind of like those robots in the Robot Wars that those nerds make. I admire them, but I can never do that.
Beyblades.
This is going to come down to who has the ball the most. Toronto has a pretty good running game. They have a very good running game with a great back in Kadeem Carey. Winnipeg has one of the best, if not the best, rush defense in all the CFL. They've also got one of the best rushing offenses in the CFL. Brady Oliveira was far and away the rushing champion of 2024. And that's why he won the most outstanding player in the league on Thursday night. It's going to come down to who makes the biggest play. It's going to come down to who controls the clock the most. The running game for Toronto is going to make a big difference because of what Nick Arbuckle being in the backfield instead of Chad Kelly. They look a lot more efficient with Chad Kelly in the lineup, but regardless, that running game helps. But if that run game gets stopped by Winnipeg's defense, who is known to stop the running game and try to make winnings one-dimensional, Toronto could get a lot of trouble very quickly. This could be a blowout. It could potentially be a blowout. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think it's going to be at least a one-score game. The last couple of Grey Cups have been very entertaining. The last three Grey Cups have been entertaining. The first 2021 was an overtime affair. Winnipeg won in Hamilton. 2022 came down to 2 blocked kicks by both teams, but the one that got the block kick at the end won the game. And that was Toronto. Last year, it was a touchdown within the last minute of the game by Montreal, from Cody Fajardo to Tyson Philpott, that beat Winnipeg. This year, you don't have to worry about weather. It's indoors. It's climate controlled. It's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be a great game. But I think when it comes down to the last possession, this game's going to come down to the last possession, I believe. And I think Winnipeg, they know how to lean on their opponent, like a heavyweight fight. If you can beat your opponent down and lean on them and just give them some body blows. Winnipeg has the ability to do that with their offensive line, with the running attack with Bertie Oliver in the backfield. I think Winnipeg is going to be your Grey Cup. It's going to be sitting tall at around 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. Holding the Grey Cup high. I'm going to take the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in a close game.
For the record, I am not happy with this matchup. Because, once again, I wanted my Saskatchewan Roughriders to be here in the Grey Cup finals.
Oh, could you imagine a trash talk between if our teams got in, if the Alouettes got in, the Rough Riders got in? The trash talk would have been epic.
Oh, this entire week, you would have been hearing from me. You would have been hearing from me 10 times more than you already do. I would have set the alarm on my phone for specific times to make sure that I sent certain messages to you. But it was kind of good that they didn't, because I really had a lot going on this week. I couldn't get distracted anyway. But I'm telling you, I would have made an extraordinary effort to make sure there was at least 1 or 2 messages a day, because our teams were there. But ironically, both of our homer picks last week, none of us got right.
Yep.
But the one pick that you did, and you had said earlier in the season, as far back as even CFL week 2, and I'm the first one to give you the props for this, when Winnipeg was beginning their drought to start this year. You said, do not be surprised if when we get to the end of this season, if we see them here in the finals. You said that. I thought you were full of expletive, but you were right. You were absolutely right. And even in the weeks that carried on since then, when you were coming back and filling spots in Total Football Talk, and then when we had the 3 lineup for a little bit, and we were still talking CFL and then NFL, and then transitioning into this program, you still had not given up hope on this team. And look at where they're at. All right. Now, the words that are about to come out of my mouth, I did not think would be coming out of my mouth on November 15th, 2024, as we are 2 days away from, seeing the actual CFL Grey Cup for the season. I'm going to go with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers to win this game. And the reason is, you got to look at what happened with Chad Kelly last week. You got Nick Arbuckle in there, and when the Nick Arbuckle's been in there for this Toronto Argonauts team, they have, like you said, have had to lean more onto their rushing attack. They've had to lean more onto their special teams. They've had to lean more on their defense. And looking at the Argos, Lirim, I gave him my dog of the week pick for this week. But if you go back in time in our look at our episodes, which I mean you were here, the times where I picked Lirim as a snowflake of the week once.
Mm-hmm.
Because and it was from a game where Nick Arbuckle was starting.
Mm-hmm.
And they were leaning on their rushing attack, and they were leaning on their defense. And those games, surprisingly were pretty close. But they were against worse caliber teams for one.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it came down to the moment when the pressure was on Lirim, he choked. Okay. Now, when it came down to the pressure for Lirim in a good game this past week, even though with what happened with Chad Kelly was in the second half, and you had all this time with him to where there wasn't so much pressure towards the end, even though it kind of was because you were down by a point. If you missed the field goal, you guys weren't going to the Grey Cup. Mm-hmm. He made it then. He might have grown from that point. But I don't know if I have the same kind of faith in Lirim and Nick Arbuckle in this 2024 Grey Cup final. With that being said, I also have to make amends for the reel I made on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers earlier this season as well. So putting all that together, I'm going to do the right thing. And I'm going to select the Winnipeg Blue Bombers as my 2024 Grey Cup champions. I'm hoping everything that you said is true as far as we have a good contest, that for the fourth consecutive year now we have a good finals to watch. It'll be the first one that I myself pay attention to from beginning to end. And it's actually, I'm glad it's happening on a Sunday where my NFL team does not play, that they already got their game out the way this past Thursday night, to where whether it's a 1:00 game ending at 4, whatever the case, there's no bleed over in time. I am going to be watching this game. Like I'm going, whether it's not on my cable television and I have to go to a Buffalo Wild Wings, I don't care.
It's on CFL. It's on CBS Sports Network.
Okay, well then I will be watching that too. Do you have to pay for that?
CBS Sports Network. Well, it should be on cable, but if it's not on your cable, go to Buffalo Wild Wings and request one of the screens. They'll probably they'll oblige.
I might be the only one watching that screen, but I will go watch that screen. It's okay.
Well, there's only three 4:00 games again this week in the NFL, so chances are of getting a TV change are pretty good.
Sweet. Yeah. And with that being said, because I have to watch this pick go through, it is the final game of the CFL season, the last one for us to preview. And for that, I have to be fair to Winnipeg. Argonauts they just don't impress me enough with what I saw post Chad Kelly injury in the highlights. Lirim did, which is why I spoke of him highly and gave him the dog of the week pick. But I don't think it's going to be that way next week. And if I do, I will. Let's just say this: if I'm wrong and Lirim wins the game for the Argos and the Argos just win in general, I will do something special on next week's broadcast on TFT Extra. Nice. With that being said, we've now gone through all of our segments except for the post game. Let's go ahead and take her from 2-minute drill to post game.
Total Football Talk Extra.
As long as it's one. Oh, that's great. I love it.
Now's that time in the show where we wrap things up, send it on home, put a bow and a tie on it. Don't know what the X was I was just saying, but I meant to say bow and tie. Here we go with Mr. McCarthy putting his bow and tie on the end.
All right, this week the Grey Cup had their media day. Commissioner Randy Ambrosi had his final media day, State of the League address on this on Tuesday, I believe it was. Tuesday. Talking about the CFL, what's been going on, what his plans, what he had hoped to have done in his time as commissioner. Unfortunately, things didn't quite work out, and I believe that's probably what happened with the owners losing confidence in him, which led to his ouster. So he's got a job until at least January, and the CFL can find himself a new commissioner. I'm available. Just a heads up. Just let you know, CFL, I'm still available. A couple of things he mentioned. He wanted in 2017. He wanted to double the league's profits. He wanted They wanted to double their revenue, and unfortunately, he said, yeah, we didn't double it. We underperformed. It's a gate-driven league, similar to the NHL, where it's a gate-driven league. You got to get people in to try to boost your profits. And I guess one of those years was 2020 being canceled because, well, you know why. We all know why. We were there. 2020 being canceled. It was a tough climb for the league to get out of that hole after missing a season. 2021, coming back with a shortened season. 2022 to 2023 into 2024 getting their ground. So the next commissioner, I wish you luck because you've got a couple of things to think about in the future. You got to figure out what's going to happen with TV at the end of 2026 because your contract with TSN, your contract with CBS Sports Network, and your contract with basically Bell Media all expire after 2026. I talked about this a few weeks ago in my opening salvo as being a candidate for CFL commissioner. Let's open up the bidding. Let's open up the bidding for the U.S. rights. Maybe ESPN might want to get back in the game. Maybe Fox Sports wants to get in the game. Maybe you want to give it back to CBS. We'll talk about that down the road. But at least with the CFL, Bell Media is giving them $50 million a year. All right. If you can turn a good profit for 2025 and 2026, you will make yourself indisposable. You can open yourself up to more TV contracts with TSN, with Bell Media, with Rogers, who owns Rogers Sportsnet. Open yourself up to the CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, who your league used to be on for so many years. The last time the Grey Cup was on CBC was in 2007. So there's a couple other things I would like to see them address. I mean, granted, there's a lot of turnover for ownership. You had new owners in BC, in British Columbia. You had new owners in Montreal, and you have your first private owner in Edmonton with the Elks. They're under private ownership for the first time ever. I think your priority, the next commissioner, your priority is to make sure that Winnipeg and Saskatchewan can get themselves private ownership. I think that's the league. That is good for the league going forward. There's problems with. I wouldn't say there's problems, but there's issues with community-owned teams. They're not able to shell out as much money in salary as other teams, but that'll be down the road. But the next commissioner, they've got some things to figure out. One of them, again, TV revenue is one thing to work out. Figure out values of the franchises. We don't really know what they are. For reportedly, the Hamilton Tiger Kitties are worth 50 million Canadian, which is about 35 million, 40 million American. But we don't really know the true value of these franchises. So we got to figure out the true value of these franchises. We also got to market the league around the players. You can't market the league around the franchises themselves. You have to market them around the players. Make the players available. The players are available. The players are there, but you got to market around your true superstars. There are true superstars in this league that you can market, both Canadian-born and American-born. You can market around players around the league. That's the one thing the NFL has been able to do for quite a long time. This is something for the next commissioner to figure out. They got to figure out how to market themselves. They got to figure out how to market themselves better to make the game more available to a bigger audience, whether it be in Canada or in the United States or internationally, because the game is popular. The game is popular in the States. You got a following in the States. You just got to make it better. You just got to make it more visible. So whoever the next commissioner is, again, I'll throw my name into the hat. Canadian Football League. Come talk to me. You know where to find me. You got some things to figure out if you want this league to move the ball and make it profitable, make it enjoyable, and make yourselves marketable to the younger audience. Because I know hockey's number one. Hockey's number one in Canada. Lacrosse is number one in Canada. Football is a distant third. If you want hope for the future, you want future kids to see who their heroes are, make your league accessible.
There it is. One more solid take from Mr. McCarthy, and especially on the league known as the Canadian Football League. Very great, sir. Definitely very, very great way to round this show out, and much better of an ending than what I'm going to give, because mine's going to be kind of short and sweet, because you will be seeing me here in the next 15 to 20 minutes when I do Commander's Gridiron Report, the shortened edition, because it will be missing 2 segments. We won't be previewing, of course, the week 11 game, because it already happened last night. So that'll make it shorter enough to where I can fit it in before the Tyson Jake Paul fight. But just basically wanted to acknowledge that it has been one fun CFL season. You know, we're down to one final game, and now we are here ready to rock and roll with this final game being this Grey Cup final. And between the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the Toronto Argonauts, you know, Ryan and I broke it down. We absolutely enjoyed breaking down this contest, you know, through and through. And it's going to be interesting to see, you know, who wins. You know, both of us have the Blue Bombers winning this game. It's very evident that, you know, we're picking them based on what we've seen in production against teams that we have both pulled for and have rooted against to beat this team in the Blue Bombers, and have proven us wrong on some occasions, primarily myself. So with that being said, whether you are watching professional wrestling tonight or the Jake Paul fight, enjoy it. Whether tomorrow on Saturday you are watching college football or the John Jones UFC fight, enjoy it. Whether Sunday you're watching NFL football, or hopefully the CFL Grey Cup final, which is the equivalent of the NFL Super Bowl, hopefully you enjoy it, because a week from today, Ryan and I will be back recapping the Grey Cup game. We will be recapping the Monday game, and if conversations with Cole go the way that I expect them to, because they generally do when we talk about ideas and suggestions and stuff, I'm thinking that starting next week we'll be bringing the Gridiron Scoop and the Chop and Block to Total Football Talk Extra, because those are segments that we both enjoy, but we don't have room to fit them into the main show, because between previewing the week before and reviewing the week before and previewing the upcoming week, we're at about 2.5 hours, 3 hours in just that alone. And when we were doing the Gridiron Scoop and the Chop and Block, the show was 4 hours, and neither one of us have 4 hours that we can spend, as much as we love spending that time with each other, hanging out, talking football, being ourselves, just hanging out at somebody's house, talking football, or anywhere. I mean, we enjoy it. Same thing with Ryan, but we all as adults just don't have the amount of time to spend 1/6 of a day sitting here talking on a podcast, as much as I would love to. It just doesn't work. And then when you have to imagine trimming down a 4-hour episode to 2 to send off to the radio station, it's just too much, man. So I'm thinking that's the direction we're going to go in. That's my suggestion, at least. And I'm pretty sure when I discuss that with him, you know, over the weekend into our next episode, more than likely, you know, I think that's going to be it, because that way the work that went into developing those segments doesn't go unused. And it's something for Ryan and I to use as fill time, because if we're only going to be reviewing one game, the episode's going to go by really quick. So I've got some ideas for that. I'll be spinning some gears this weekend. Also, the development of D. William this evening, season 3's first episode will be recorded this weekend, and it will be on the airwaves next Thursday. That will be the first time that show has been back in about 4 months, I believe, 4 or 5 months, because it was June, I believe, was the last time I had that for season 2. So we'll be picking up where I mailed the hair off. There will be a clip of me mailing the hair off for that. So with that being said, I've also not had a haircut since that day. So who knows? Is it coming back? We haven't decided yet. Myself and the fellowship team. I'm just talking smack in this moment. I'm having a good time. Love you guys. Thank you all for tuning in to our program, Total Football Talk Extra, as McCoffee is back, and get ready to send it home. Oh, you came back, and with that,
I accidentally closed both my windows for some reason. I had two Chrome windows open. When I hit exit, they both went.
so to you, it was a total
Surprise, motherfucker.
Also a total fail.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, but you made it back. That's all that matters. So sometimes, when it comes to help with the internet, we have to.
Stop it. Get some help.
That was more so for me because I need to stop clicking buttons. We need to get on out of here. Everybody, hopefully you all had a great time watching this episode, whether it was live or syndicated. Again, if you are watching this on Comey Media, no credentials required, or on Sartoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome, please subscribe now and never miss out on new content, whether it's today, yesterday, or in the future. We appreciate you tuning into all of our programs. We only have one more thing left to do, and that is to look at one badass outro from my man, Ryan McCarthy. I am Drew Willingham. Everybody, as always, stay safe out here in these streets.